So it was around the 1st of September 1989. The school started for our three girls. Karen and Catherine were part of the American Community School. And so Karen did her last 2 years of high school there. Catherine did her first 2 years of high school there. And it was a 14-mile trip up the A3 and to their school, which is in Cobham, Esher area. So I basically took the kids. I did, in fact, took the kids there every school day, except when I was on a trip, and then Connie would do it. But I loved that time, and so did she. But it was always good as dad to kind of be with the girls and check in on them and just tell them I hope you're not weird like me, but do your best. And if they'd forgotten something, I was happy, really happy to go to bring it back later if I could. But they were pretty good about that, and so it was very rare I'd ever have to make a second trip during the day. So I would take them in the morning and then pick them up in the afternoon. And when I was absent, Connie would do that. So it was a great experience, and we kind of enjoyed that windscreen time, as they would say, windscreen, not windscreen time, with the girls on the school days, and it was a delight. It was a great school. They had a lot of extra activities they did, and the girls were quite active in different things, and it was for both of them really, really a great experience, and we're grateful to the Lord for that provision that I've spoken about in a previous recording. So that was it, and the drives were uneventful, um, fortunately, but on occasion there would be like a low fog, and so you had to drive with your fog lights on and be careful, and we always left them plenty of time because the kids are in school, they were never late. But I can remember one day I was coming down the A3 and I was pulled over by the police, and I didn't know what his problem was. But I knew they were going to tell me. So one of the guys came out and actually got inside the car, and it's a little misty, and I can understand that. Got inside the car and took his hat off and said, you need to have your lights on, your fog lights on. I said, well, I did. I told him where I'd gone up to Cobham. I said I did when I took my girls to school, but I just didn't think, my judgment was it wasn't needed. And he said, no, no, you should have them on. I said, okay, sorry. And he said, I just need you to know that we intend to prosecute you to the full extent of the law. I said, really? What's that? He said, well, it's a serious fine. I said, well, look, you know, okay. My judgment was I didn't need them, but you're saying I did. Sorry about that. So what do we do? Well, they confiscated my license, and I had to appear before this court, these three judges, and they chose a date. And so I had a temporary license I could travel with. And finally, I came in for that appointment. And these guys, the tribunal, I don't know what it is, they sit up, it's like they're like hanging on the wall. It's very high. And you're down here. The police officer was there. I was there. And I'm looking up like this. So they asked for my understanding, my version of the story. I told them, I said, well, um, I judged that my judgment was they weren't needed. I had them on the way up, honestly. I had the lights on the way up to the school, and the way back, I made the judgment that I didn't need them. And one of the judges says, you judged wrongly. Okay, I apologize. So they confer with each other, and they said, what are we going to do? Well, we have him do social service, and they all laughed. Yeah, he's a pastor. That's what he does anyway. So, okay, so it seemed like that was kind of funny for them. And so, well, we're going to, you pay a fine, and they fined me 20 pounds sterling. Now, I I had walked by that area where you make a payment outside the courtroom, and some guy just had like a $300 or $400 fine. I had no idea what that was for, but I'm thinking like, what? 300, 400 pounds. Hope not. And they said, can you pay that? Can you pay a fine? I said, well, I said, yeah, I mean, I'm not making a lot of money, but I'll do what's right. And what you decide is what I'll live with. No complaints. So they gave me this 20-pound fine. And when I got outside to the little kiosk where you paid it, she goes, wow, they must like you. I've never seen a fine this low. I said, well, that's what they said. So that was my experience. Another funny thing that happened is when I was sitting in the car with this guy, he said, may I ask you a personal question? And I said, well, is this off the record or is this going to be a part of the full extent of the law of prosecution? He says, no, just personal. He said, why are you drinking tea? You have a tea in the car. I said, well, it's not tea, it's coffee, but obviously that's the same thing. He said, yeah, well, why do you do that? I said, well, because I want to. He just looked at me like, I don't know, such a thought had never entered his head. I said, because I want to. So that was kind of fun on my driving experience. And that was part of that whole thing for those 2 years with the girls. So it was great. It was a great experience driving them up. Chris, on the other hand, went to school in our community. It's called Rydes Hill Preparatory School. It had been a convent school since its beginning. And the first year that Chris was there, out of 2 years, there was still a nun, a sister who was in charge of the school, a really wonderful person, very spiritual, godly woman. And she was still head of the school and really liked Chris. It was a great environment. Chris had great teachers. They had meals together in the school, and it was a hot meal. And the way they did it is the older students would help the younger students by serving them at the table, and they're learning, I guess, proper manners and all that, table manners. So that was a great experience all the way around. And Chris, of course, in that context, developed a rather striking British accent that everybody thought that she was actually British. So one day we're eating dinner together after school, and the five of us around the table, and all of a sudden, I just noticed that as Chris was talking, the other four of us were just kind of like staring at her. And she was talking with, using the utensils like the British do, with they use both hands. And you don't cut meat and then change, and it's all like this. And then mashing your peas on the fork, very British. And then we're all just like, wow, who is this? What have you done with our daughter? So it's kind of one of the fun things that happened there that way. And on one occasion, I took Chris to the house of this little girl who was in her class for a birthday party. And what you do there is you just sort of drop them off, and then you don't go in or anything. You just drop them off, and then when the party's over, at a specified time, you go back, and at that time you go in, and they serve drinks, coffee or whatever, and a snack or so. So it's like a little tea time there at the close of that birthday party. So I went to pick her up and knocked on the door, and this woman came, and I said, "Hi, I'm here to pick my daughter up." She looked at me and she goes, "Well, I don't believe we have an American girl here." I said, "Well, I can assure you that you do, because I dropped one off." She says, "No." I said, "Yes." She said, "Well, don't tell me who it is, and come in, and then when she comes up to you, that's how I want to know, which of these girls that I'm convinced are all English. That's how I know who it is." It's okay, fine. So Chris came walking up to me after a few minutes, and I'm drinking coffee, talking to somebody, and the hostess is still there, and in the U.S. she said, "Hey, Dad, how's it going?" No, hi, glad you're here. Hey, Dad, whatever. She said, "Hello, Daddy." I mean, this perfect British accent, which I can't do, but she could. And this woman, her jaw dropped, and she goes, "Kristen?" She really would be one of the last. She had this posh English accent from where she went to school. She would have been one of the last I would have thought really? This is your daddy? And she says, yeah. So that was kind of interesting. And Doug Graham at the church also made the same comment that after about 6 months or so that we were there, that Kristen sounded like them. She says, you don't, you and Connie and the girls don't, but Chris does. She definitely sounds like she grew up here in this area. So that's kind of fun. And we've often joked about that, but um, she was in an environment that was, and of course, she has perfect pitch musically, and she just is very sensitive, and she just is able to imitate sound she hears. So it wasn't too long that her accents shifted from West Coast USA to Southeast England. It was a beautiful thing. So that's our experiences with school, American Community School in Cobb Measure and Rydes Hill Preparatory School there in Guildford. What a great provision the Lord had for our girls in the schools.